I'm going to do a horror movie review of Lords of Salem. Now, this was written, directed, produced by Rob Zombie. I'm going to do my best to explain the movie without spoiling it, which is going to be really hard. But then I'm going to get into massive, detailed spoilers. It's a very graphic, weird, strange film with like full frontal nudity, lots of disturbing imagery and religious undertones, and a lot of symbolism, symbolic, like witchcraft, demons, the devil. Very weird film. So I don't even know why I'm choosing this one to be like my first horror movie review, but it's gonna be interesting. So it's starring Sherry Moon Zombie, which is Rob Zombie's like wife. So he puts her in a lot of his movies, and she's okay. She's an okay actress, like nothing special. And then like the co-stars are a bunch of his friends that he always puts in, the movies. So it's about her. She's a DJ. She's like kind of like a hippie with dreadlocks, and she's like a recovering drug addict or alcoholic. So she kind of goes to AA meetings or, the drug alcohol meetings. So that's the most backstory you get about her. And like, they all have fun personalities, the characters, but they have zero to very little character development. You don't know too much about them, but they all have fun personalities. So based on their like quirky, fun personalities, you like them without knowing much about them. So she's a DJ at this heavy metal radio station, and she's there with her like co-hosts, and you got one co-host, he's like the cool, laid back guy. You literally know nothing about him. He has zero backstory. And then you have this other character co-host named Herman. He's kind of like stuck in the friend zone. They hang out all the time. He goes over to her house, but they do nothing. He always hints at wanting to do something and wanting more, and saying like, oh, I really care about you deep down inside, but like she always like puts up a wall, and so he's like stuck in the friend zone the whole time. So what happens is, this movie is about like witches and witchcraft and a covenant of witches. So you start off right off the bat when the movie starts, and this is not a spoiler, so don't worry, but right when it starts, it's very ominous, like music. And it's like, the music is very simple. It's like a couple notes, but it's very creepy and ominous. And you start out with Heidi. She's like in a car. She's looking very like defeated or in a trance or something. You don't know what's wrong with her. And then it cuts back to like a goat. A close-up of a goat. The whole time this music is playing. Then you cut to like these covenant of witches, and they're like standing around a fire. They're talking about, of course, the devil, and chanting. And then they're looking for a woman that can give birth to this demon baby or the spawn of Satan. And then it cuts back to present day Salem, Massachusetts. So it's about witches in the 1600s in Salem, Massachusetts, and that's where it starts off. And then you see this other guy, Hawthorne, and he's like writing a book or a journal about these witches, and he hates them and he wants to kill them. It's very boring starting off. You just see her at home. She lives alone with her dog, and she's just walking around the house doing nothing. Very slow and boring, and no character development really. So then out of nowhere, at the DJ radio station, she gets a record. Someone sends her a record, and you don't know who it's from first. It's kind of hinted at later, But if, they don't come out and say it, you kind of have to, use your detective skills or whatever. But so it's just a guess anyway of who sent it to her. But it was specifically sent just to her. So she takes it home with Herman. They have some dinner together. He tries to make his moves, but it doesn't work, stuck in the friend zone. So they play the record, and it's that same music from the beginning. Those 3, 4, 5 notes, whatever. The second she plays the record, she goes into a trance. And Herman's like, what's going on? Are you okay? What's going on? So he stops the music, and she comes out of the trance. Now, ever since that moment, she starts having these hallucinations, these horrid dreams. So then you cut back to the witches, and there's this like random girl that they have like pinned down. They're all holding her down, and they have her like their hand on her mouth. She can't speak. And then they take some knife or something and they cut her stomach open. And is this spoilers? I don't know. But so they cut the stomach open and they pull out a baby. So they look at the baby and they think, oh, it's the spawn of Satan. But then they look at it and they're like, this is not the spawn of Satan. And then they actually spit on the baby. So you cut back to Heidi and she's having all these horrid dreams. And then she's walking again through her apartment, very boring. The main witch, Margaret Morgan, is in the bathroom or something. And Heidi walks right past her. She doesn't see her. So you're like, whoa, it's like a jump scare. When Heidi's like walking out of her apartment, she looks at the end of the hall at this empty apartment and she thinks it's empty, but she sees like a person there. And she's like, hey, how you doing? And the person, you don't see who it is, but it's a woman. And she slams the door in her face. She's like, yeah, whatever. So then you meet the landlord, and she says like, hey, did we get a new tenant in the apartment building down the hallway? She's like, no, what are you talking about? It's been empty for months. She's like, really? Because I just saw someone in there and slammed the door in my face. And she's like, no, that's kind of weird, so I'm going to go check it out, whatever. So they take the record back to the radio station, and they play the record on the air. So again, Heidi goes into that trance. And Herman's like, what's going on? And the other, the other guy, the other co-host is like, whoa, what's going on? Heidi, you okay? So now you see, like, some of the women that are listening to this radio station and this song comes on, they go into a trance. So you're like, why are they going into a trance? So then you basically cut back to the witches, the covenant, and they're all like tied to like stakes and these torture devices in this torture chair. They're like strapped in, and they're this guy Hawthorne, he's burning them at the stake. So they all get burned alive, and basically the main witch, Margaret Morgan, puts a curse on all the women in Salem, Massachusetts. So you also meet this other guy who's a writer, and he only writes about witches and the covenant and the Salem witch trials. So he's interviewed on the radio station, and he's a fan of this guy Hawthorne, and he kind of tells a story about the witches and how they got burnt at the stakes. Now let's get into spoilers, because there's so much imagery and it's hard to do it without spoilers. So spoilers right now, if I haven't already kind of spoiled it for you. She keeps having dreams. So she goes into a trance, and then she goes outside her apartment, and then the apartment building at the end of the hallway, the door's open. So she just walks into the apartment, and then the door shuts behind her. Now in the apartment is, and I'm not sure if the music's playing at the time, But she just walks into the apartment and there's this big red glowing cross on the wall. She goes in there and she goes straight to the cross and she puts her hands up like this, like she's praying to the cross. And then there's all these images of the witches like burning at the stake or just fire. And there's this gigantic like silhouette of a hairy creature with claws like a Bigfoot, but you don't see his face, but he's like very scary looking. And he comes out of the fire into the apartment, standing behind Heidi the whole time with her hands up, looking at the cross in a trance. And it's like this creature and you don't know what's going on. And then she wakes up. And also want to mention, she's also naked for no reason. Like, I don't know if Rob Zombie specifically wanted this, but even when you first see her, she's like naked on a bed with her ass. And then she's, puts some clothes on. And then again, when she keeps having these dreams, she wakes up naked again. And even later in the movie, when, her boyfriend or whatever he is, the friend zone, Herman guy, comes to pick her up, she's just naked on a bed for no reason. When she comes out, there is Margaret Morgan naked again, disgusting looking. Like, I have to look away, I have to cringe. Her body is just so old and wrinkly and disgusting. And that's when she talks to Heidi, and Heidi kind of acknowledges her for the first time. And she basically says, like, I want you to be the person who gets pregnant by the spawn of Satan and gives birth to our King Satan. And then she wakes up again. So it's just a dream, or is it? So the more and more she has these dreams, that Margaret Morgan witch appears more in her apartment. Like she turns on this light and she just appears there. And Heidi doesn't see her, but she's like standing on the counter of the kitchen. Okay. Another just random day walking her dog, she goes to church. And then she goes and meets a priest, and then, she's trying to tell the priest, like, all the weird stuff that's happening to her. And then out of nowhere, the priest is, like, nice to her. But then he starts, like, groping her and touching her. And then he forces her to give him a blowjob. And she gives him a blowjob. She doesn't hold back or anything. And then, out of nowhere, he just vomits blood. And then she wakes up. So it was just a dream. Basically, Margaret Morgan, for being burned at the stake, just before she got killed, she put a curse on all the women in Salem, but only the descendants of this guy Hawthorne that burned her and the Covenant of Witches at the stake. So that's the curse that she put on only the women. So when you see the women hearing that music, that ominous like note music, and they go into a trance, only the women that are the descendants of Hawthorne are getting put into that trance and then being affected. Another dream I remember is she's at home with Herman, who's still stuck in the friend zone, and I don't know where she's just coughing up blood. And then like Herman freaks out, he calls 911, and then she sees these three like stone-faced surgeons standing behind Herman, and then one of them just touches Herman on the shoulder, and then he has like these weird white zombie eyes, and he just passes out dead. The three surgeon stone-faced creatures grab her, and then she wakes up on a surgical table at a doctor's surgery or something, and then they're cutting her open, ripping her intestines out, like very gory. She's awake, feeling all the pain, blood everywhere, and then they like rip out this creature that looks like a spider, lizard, octopus thing, and it's like wiggling, and it has all these tentacles and fingers, and it's gross. She goes to the bathroom, she has like this weird painting on the wall, and then the painting starts to bleed, and then she wakes up again. After that, she can't take it no more. And she goes and buys drugs. She relapses and she does crack. She like smokes crack. I forgot to mention something when she meets the landlord lady, and then later she meets her two sisters. So she goes and meets the sisters, and one of the sisters is a palm reader. And right away, when you see the landlord kind of, I knew something was up with the landlord lady. But then when you meet her sisters, there's something really creepy or just suspect, or something's off with these three women and the two sisters. So one of the sisters reads Heidi's palm, and she kind of says like, oh, you have all these like sexual deviant thoughts, and you're like, heathen. And so it kind of scares Heidi off. After she takes the drugs and relapses, the landlord lady and the two sisters show up out of nowhere. Heidi lets them in, and then they kind of take care of her at first, but then one of them says, get the chair, put her in the chair. And you're like, what chair? So they take Heidi, put her in the chair, and then they push her into the apartment. So Heidi gets up, all drugged out, walks into the apartment, and in the apartment is not a regular apartment. It's like this other door or dimension of like this gigantic hall or amphitheater. It's like a beautiful mansion. The walls are gold, and the ceiling is like this beautiful marble painting of like this, angels and demons and war going on. But it's so beautiful, and there's like this loud opera music, and she's still in the trance. And then there's these gigantic like staircase going up, and you're like, where's it going? So when the camera cuts to her face, now her face, she's wearing like this, basically the cover. She's wearing like this striped black and white shirt and this white face with like makeup on her forehead of the symbol of the Covenant of the Witches. So she walks up the stairs, and then at the top of the stairs, more creepy like imagery. So it's this like mini-me, tiny, like short creature, like slimy and bloody, or it's not bloody, but slimy, with antennas and like these weird like lobster claw hands, and he's making like this weird noise, and he's ugly looking. He's really hard to look at. So she walks to him, and he has like two umbilical cords sticking out of him, and then she grabs the umbilical cords, and it's like she's getting electrocuted, and she's like shaking like this, and she's like, her face is all being electrocuted, but you don't see electricity, but she's like shaking like this, holding the two umbilical cords. And then that's it. She just comes back out. The landlord and the two sisters take her back into her room and tuck her into bed. They leave, and then out of nowhere, that same weird alien, mini-me creature just waddles, because he has a gigantic stomach. He looks like he's pregnant, but he's not. He just has like a big stomach. He waddles, and he's not even that much taller than the bed. He's really short. He just waddles to the bed, making this weird, like creepy, like noise he makes. And then that's it. Next day, you're like, what? What the hell just happened here? What did I just witness here? You cut back to that writer, Francis, and he's kind of doing some background digging into Heidi, and he does some research on the internet, like who she really is, and he finds out, wouldn't you guess it? Heidi is the great granddaughter of Hawthorne, the guy that burned the witches, burned them alive at the stake. That's why, like, it's affecting her. The music is affecting her, and she's being targeted. Now, my guess, they don't come out and say this, but my guess of who sent her that record with the music, I think it was the landlord, because you find out that the landlord and the two sisters, they're like hardcore worshippers of the Salem witch and the trials and Margaret Morgan. So they're kind of like, the current, so to speak, witches or followers to the 1600 original witches and covenant and all that. After this, Heidi gets pregnant. That's what I think that small creature and her holding the umbilical cords kind of meant, that now she's pregnant. You don't see that she's pregnant with her stomach, but I think that's what it means. So now the ending basically is Francis, once he finds out who she really is, he goes to the apartment to find Heidi, but he meets the landlord lady, and he kind of brings her into her apartment, and then the two sisters are there. And then he's like, yeah, I'm looking for Heidi. Where is she? And then it's like, oh, she's not here. So basically they kill Francis, the writer, and they hit him over the head with like a frying pan or something, and it just bashes brains in, and he's dead. Then Herman gives her, the guy stuck in the friend zone, gives Heidi a call. So Heidi talks to him, and he's like, yeah, I'm fine, everything's okay. But like one of the landlord ladies like standing right there, listening into the conversation. And, hey, Heidi's like, yeah, everything's fine, don't worry about it. And you kind of get a little bit of character development where Herman's like, listen, I care about you so much, I'm always here for you, no matter what, so you just let me know if anything's wrong. And she's like, no, I'm fine, bye. And then you find out that, like, oh, Heidi loves him, but that's it, no more character development, that's it. So then, what happens is you find out that the Lords of Salem, this band, are coming into town and doing a concert. So what happens is Herman, is really worried about Heidi, especially after the phone call. So he comes to the apartment building looking for her. So you're thinking like, oh, he's going to get killed just like Francis, the writer. But no. He does meet the landlord lady and the two sisters. But for some weird reason, they allow him to go see Heidi. So again, for no reason, randomly, she's naked. Laying on the sofa naked. So he goes into the apartment building, and she's like, I'm fine, I'll be right there, let me get dressed, and I'll come with you to the show at the theater where they're, the Lords of Salem is going to do a one-time concert. So they leave, Herman doesn't get killed, so okay, good. So they go to this theater. Now, when they get to the theater, they go to the back alley, and then Heidi just goes into the theater, shuts the door, and says, goodbye, Herman. Slams the door, and that's it. Like, Herman doesn't stop her. Herman doesn't go in. The other, DJ that's with them doesn't say anything, doesn't go in. The theater is just filled with a couple of women. Like, I don't know, they even say like 24, maybe 30 women, more or less, but it's not filled just only with women. On stage is the landlord lady with the two sisters, and you're like, what? What are they doing here? So, the curtain rises, and then behind them it's like a bright light. So, out of nowhere, Margaret Morgan shows up with the 6 Covenant of Witches, and you're thinking like, what? How did they come into this world in the current, Massachusetts, Salem? How? Is it a dream? Like, what's going on here? I was confused. So the music starts playing, and Heidi, she's at the top of balcony. They all look up at her like, there's Heidi. So the music starts playing, and once that happens, all the women in the audience walk up on stage. Now, again, that Herman guy who's stuck in the friend zone, I don't know if he's in the building, but he doesn't do anything either. He's out of the building, and it's not like it's locked where you can't walk in. So either he's in, but he does nothing about it. He just watches all this happen. So all the women walk up on stage, and they all take their clothes off. So again, full frontal nudity. They start chanting, and the witches start chanting, and then Heidi is like there, and she's pregnant now. So now you see the stomach pregnant, and then they don't cut the baby out. She gives birth to this disgusting, slimy, arachnid creature with like tentacles, and it's like wiggling like this, and it's very ugly looking, like alien with like a beak. It's like a mixture of a bunch of creatures together. So it's the devil. She gave birth to Satan's spawn, the devil. And then that's when you see her standing on top with the white robe and the white eyes like Mary Magdalene. Very religious undertones. And once she's giving birth, I also remember this, a lot of quick montages of imagery and symbolism. Very ominous and disgusting. Like, from what I remember, like you see her, she's riding a stuffed goat. You see this like heavy metal guy with makeup on and a long tongue, like humping her from behind, licking her face, and she's enjoying it. You see this infant baby from the beginning that some lady gave birth to, but it wasn't the spawn of Satan. And the baby's like tied to a cross, and it's dead. And it's like, crucified on a cross, a baby. Like, what? And then you see like the same priests with the stone faces, or the surgeons with the stone faces, and more priests and naked women with black animal masks on, walking in front of priests with stone faces. And then priests are sitting in these chairs with like dildos, and they're jerking off the dildos. You're like, what the hell am I watching here? Like, you see, images of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene, and a crucified bloody baby. You're like, what's going on here? And so finally, you see Heidi standing on top of a pile of naked women. And then, and in the Covenant of Witches, they're holding the creepy crawly, like, spawn of Satan in their arms, and they're hugging it and loving it and kissing it. And then you see, like, the landlord lady and the two sisters, they're, like, smiling at Heidi, and they're worshiping her. And then that's it. The movie ends. And you see Heidi, just a random cut of Heidi in the park walking her dog. That's it. The movie ends. And then you just see credits, and in the apartment building, and like, houses of Salem, Massachusetts, with credits rolling over. But then you hear like a news report saying like Heidi went missing, and all the women that were up on stage, at the concert, they're all dead. They all committed suicide. All naked, committed suicide, and Heidi's missing. You don't know about the witches? You don't know about the landlord lady and the two sisters? You don't know about Herman or the other DJ guy? And you're like, why didn't they stop it? So Heidi's missing. And the movie's over. I don't hate the movie, but I kind of get it. I just wish it could have been a little bit more character development with Heidi and Herman, and even like, the Francis, the writer, or the witches. Like, it was too boring. Like it started off just, Heidi walking around her apartment and no character development, and like the characters had good personalities, but that's it. And then you had a lot of disturbing, bloody, religious, creepy images. So some people might not like that. And it was very confusing at parts. But I kind of get that you had a covenant of witches, and she's the descendant of the Hawthorne guy that burned the witches at the stake. And because of the song and the curse, that's how they managed to come into this dimension or into her dreams and make it seem like it's real. And then you had the landlord ladies who were the followers of the Covenant of Witches. So they kind of, got Heidi to get pregnant, and with that creepy demon midget or whatever it was with the umbilical cords, and she was holding it. That I didn't get. They could have done that a little bit better. But the movie's like a C plus. Like I need enough character development. It just didn't have that, and the imagery just wasn't working in for me. But I get what the story was about, and it just didn't make sense at the end why Herman just allowed it to happen. Just allowed Heidi to go into the theater at the concert and didn't walk in, or was in there in the back and didn't stop it, didn't jump up on stage and save her. And then she went missing, and then how did she go missing? Like, wasn't Herman there? What happened to Herman and the other guy? So you should, look at it, but it's going to be very confusing, boring, lots of disturbing images, confusing parts. So just out of curiosity, you could take a look at it, and, but me, I give it a C. I don't know if I can make it to a C plus. Check it out, guys. Let me know what you think. If you understood some of the imagery, if you understood some of the story, let me know in the comments. So, hope you enjoyed the review. Please like, subscribe, help me grow my channel. Let me know if you like these movie reviews. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like, share this video, hit me up on Facebook and Twitter, comment down below. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell. And also, don't forget to check out my other videos. And until next time, remember my motto, where story comes first.